I'm joined in the studio by Jace Tyrrell. He's the chief executive at the New West End Company, and you basically represent all the shops in central London, or most of them.
Best bit of the monopoly board: Bond Street, Oxford Street and Regent Street.
Right, OK, so high-end retailers, are they struggling?
Yeah, I mean, I think in your opening remarks, it's certainly a very challenging Christmas at the moment. Probably since back to 2008, we've seen these sort of numbers. I think there's two things happening. There's the big global structural shift, as you talk about. The customer now wants convenience, and they want things in a different way and different times when they're buying and purchasing. And of course, here in the UK and in London, we've got a consumer confidence crunch, not least with Brexit, but just generally the mood, inflation, wage pressure. That's also putting pressure on as well. So two of these things together are making it extraordinarily challenging Christmas, although we have seen some good results from some of the retailers. But you're right, they've got a lot of stock they've got to clear, and you're going to see some very early discounting for Boxing Day, which has already started on the high street over the weekend.
Do you agree with Mike Ashley? There are too many outlets and too many people competing for their market.
I think there's too many of certain categories. So I think your point before, you've got a lot of fashion brands on these high streets up and down the country. We think in the West End and Mayfair, probably 25% too much retail. When we say retail, it's the more traditional 20th century retail. What we need in the future is experiential, it's the cinemas, it's the yoga that you have on Regent Street. It's all these different types of customer experiences that gets them out, gets them into the high streets and gets them spending their time and their money. So I think you're going to see a lot of structural shift, and also the government and the planners need to help retailers adjust to this new norm.
Hundreds of bargain hunters have been hitting the high street for the annual Boxing Day sales, with some starting to queue from as early as midnight last night to bag a deal. Shoppers are expected to spend around £4 billion today, even after prices were slashed before Christmas. Our correspondent Joe Miller has more.
In London's West End, however, things are looking up.
There is definitely a Boxing Day bounce here in the West End. Footfall up 15% by 10:30 this morning. A lot of international customers here, driven by the low pound, and actually people wanting to get out of the house, breathe some fresh air and take up to 70% off with some good bargains.
In the next few hours, more than £50 million is expected to be spent in central London.
Now, the traditional Boxing Day sales will get underway this morning, but it's been a difficult year on the high street. Be any different? Here to answer that is Jace Tyrrell, who is the chief executive of the New West End Company that represents retailers in central London. Hello to you.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. Is it good, bad or indifferent?
Well, it's been a challenging Christmas, hasn't it, up and down the high street. So I think all the retailers are banking on a pretty good Boxing Day. They've got a lot of stock to clear, so you're seeing some pretty good discounts, about 70% off. But all the important Christmas trading goes right into the new year, where the headwinds are pretty challenging for the high street up and down the country.
OK, so why do you think that we've fallen out of love with the high street?
I think there's a number of factors going on here. I mean, structurally, customers are changing the way they shop. In 2000, only 1% of customers went online. We're almost 20% now, so obviously that plays into the mix. Also, customers want more convenience. They want stuff in real time. They want different things to buy as well. For the West End, there's a lot more experiential things happening. You hear that buzzword all the time in retail.
What's Christmas look like so far, do you know? Too early to say?
It's been mixed. November was quite challenging because it was quite mild, if you remember. So there was a lot of fashion goods trying to clear. So great for customers now. If you haven't got some of your winter coats or jumpers, there's some good discounts going on there. It's been good in the last week. We've seen some good double-digit growth from last year, which is encouraging. For us in central London, a lot of international visitors taking great value in that weaker pound, of course. It entices them in to come and shop with us.
Sure. Sales always work very well for you guys, I'm guessing.
Well, I think it's one reason to get customers in, but of course things like the Christmas lights and everything else that happens also draws customers in. For us in the West End, we'll take about £2.5 billion in sales in November, December, so really important trading.
Under threat, facing a multi-pronged attack, as much from the rise of online shopping as from general economic uncertainty.
It was such a shift. In 2000, only 1% of people shopped online. It's now 20% of people. So that's moved quite a lot in a relatively short period of time. Customers demanding the immediate customer experience. They want the online, the in-store. But wrap that together in the UK, we've got Brexit, we've got wage inflation. So actually there's some real challenges.
Well, according to New West End Company, who represents over 600 businesses, footfall was up 15% by 10:30 on Boxing Day alone. Well, the CEO joins me now, Jace Tyrrell, to chat about all of this. What a day, Jace. I mean, my goodness.
It was very busy out there. I mean, I've done a number of Boxing Days now, and we ended up 16% up. Yesterday, almost up in double digits as well. So I think there's, as you say, a lot of savvy shoppers out there getting a good bargain and taking advantage of up to 70% off.
Do you think it is all about those discounts then?
Well, I think it's been an interesting Christmas because actually it was quite mild in November, so the stores had to clear a lot of fashion goods, so you saw some quite heavy discounting there. But I think everyone knows there's some good bargains in lead up to Christmas Day itself, obviously in the sales as well. I think people want to get out of the house as well, get some fresh air, come and see the last glimpse of the lights. But for retailers, it's a really important trading period. For us, we take about £2.5 billion over the 8 weeks, so it's a really important trading time, and obviously for a lot of retailers their profit is made in those last couple of months. So like the West End, we turn over nearly £9 billion a year, so you think £2.5 billion is quite significant and really important for the brands we represent.
Absolutely. Now there's so many elements to this story because we've got tourists here that come and take advantage of our sales, but not just that, the weaker pound, so they're getting more for their buck, quite literally.
Absolutely. Since Brexit, we've seen quite a spike, particularly in Chinese visitors, actually. If you walk around Oxford Street on Boxing Day, a lot of Chinese visitors out there, with Londoners as well, but certainly picking up a good bargain. And we've seen about a 40% increase of Chinese visitors this year alone. So as we face Brexit, as we face some pretty significant headwinds in the retail sector, we're very fortunate in the West End. We are probably those truly European global capital, and a lot of tourists who want to come here, buoyed by the weaker pound.
Absolutely, and more they come, the better, isn't it, really? Absolutely taking advantage. There is another element as well, though, because do you think the government should be doing more to support the high street? Because we do hear a lot the death of the high street, and that is, I think, mainly, you educate me, because people are shopping online now. It's just the way that society is.
There's been a real shift, as you know. Customers are going online, they're coming into the store. It's global and it's local with what's happening. And yes, the government could do more. I mean, we've got a huge pressure on things like business rates, which is the tax a lot of retailers pay. We had an 80% increase in the West End a couple of years ago. And when you're a retailer on very tight margins, those taxes really have an impact. So we've got to look at tax and business rates. We also look at planning, making sure that retailers can bring restaurants in, trade a bit later in the evening, which is the local planning policy. If we get those ingredients right and retailers evolve and do their online in-store, hopefully the future of the high street is looking pretty bright. And for the West End, we've got the Elizabeth line coming in a couple of years as well, so that will really boost customer demand in the medium term.